Hello, and we're looking at causation in criminal law. So, what we're looking at is Novus, Actus, Interveniens, new intervening acts. What these are is that these are acts which basically exonerate the defendant from any criminal liability because their act no longer becomes operating and substantial cause of the consequence that's in concern. And we've been looking at all different types of them, and this is the last one we'll be looking at, which is victim flights, i.e. the Roberts test. So how this goes is in R and Roberts, 1971, the victim was a passenger of the defendant's car. The defendant attempted to molest the victim, and the victim jumped out of the moving car and obviously incurred with some injuries. Now, the defendant was charged, and the defendant tried to argue that the fact that the victim jumped out of the car, that was a Novus Actus intervening, I didn't cause that, I didn't cause the injury. However, the courts held he was still liable because this was a foreseeable result. So if it is foreseeable, then you are still held responsible. This test became modified in Williams and Davies 1992. The victim jumped from the car and died because the victim jumped from the car and died because of a threat of robbery. Now, the Court of Appeal, they modified the Roberts test. They said that the jury has to consider any responses which might be accepted from a victim placed in the situation he was. It's not a subjective test, it's an objective reasonable man test. And in this situation, you would not expect a reasonable person at the threat of being robbed to jump out the car the way they did and basically die. And so for that reason, the conviction for manslaughter was quashed because it wasn't reasonable to jump out the car in this particular situation. So what are we trying to say here? We're trying to say here that to establish a Novus Actus intervenien where the victim has jumped out of a car or some kind of moving vehicle or something similar to that, you need to be able to foresee that your actions of molesting them, robbing them, would cause them to act in a certain way, and B, that a reasonable person, the reasonable man, would have jumped the way that the victim did. Anyway, thank you for watching, and please visit my website.